Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and dive in today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We are joined by the wonderful Ari K, a branding and design expert with over 13 years of experience to talk about transforming your online presence. So we're going to learn to define clear goals, structure websites for a seamless user experience, and optimize design and performance to drive business growth. A bit about our esteemed and wonderful expert today. Ari is the CEO and head of strategy at Lofia, a web and creative agency partnering with women-led brands in B2B tech to transform their website into platforms that drive business growth. So for over 13 years, she's been delivering high-quality website design, branding, and UX services, helping over 250 businesses achieve 6- and 7-figure successes. She's also the co-author of the best-selling book, Made to Sell: Creating Websites That Convert. We are so excited to learn from you today. We also know how valuable your time is. We're really grateful to you for investing in the Dreamers and Doers community in this way. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm super excited to be here with you all. Oh man, I have a lot to share, and hopefully a lot of these information can be very helpful for you as you start navigating through next year, or even just like start planning what your business aims to do or tackle for 2025. So let me start sharing my screen. One moment. Let's see. You guys can see my screen, right? All right, perfect. Alrighty, so earlier Nicole already introduced me, so I'm gonna keep this briefly. Some of you maybe already know me from either LinkedIn or here in Chicago. Callie, looking at you. But really, a lot of the time, people will come to us really asking for this guidance in terms of like, how do I really turn my, brand, my business into a really well organized, scalable business, especially online. So that's exactly what we do. We have different packages and services that we can help businesses with. But really, for today in particular, I also want to get to know you. So in the chat, if you can, please share a little bit about yourself, maybe share like who you are, what your business is all about, why are you attending this, and if you want to also have a little bit more fun, feel free to help answer, any of the cue card in front of you. I have 4 of them in front of me and also in front of you here. And my favorite one is actually number 2. I tend to get asked this question like, would you rather give up your phone or computer? I personally cannot live without my computer. I think I can survive without my phone. But I'll be curious to hear like from some of you, if you want to drop it in the chat, like which one is the card question that appealing to you to answer, share it so that we can also get to know each other. All right. While we do that, I also want to kind of kick it off in terms of like looking at how our purchasing habit typically goes, especially online, right? We tend to just feel super confident buying any type of product or brand that we follow, that we truly value, or even like services, despite having to pay for a premium price on them. But there's this little, shift that also happened when we try to revert that back to our target audience. Why is it that we feel so confident when we spend, money or purchase something for other brands or other businesses, despite that premium price? But when it comes to our own businesses, we tend to not have this, complete picture for our own customers, our own leads, our future, clients and stuff like that to feel confident in purchasing our product or our services. So why is that? What exactly did we miss in our, communication, in our collateral, in our marketing pieces, and even on the website? Where did it go wrong? The big thing that I noticed is that most businesses didn't really pay close attention to the user-centric experience, right? So that is the root of the problem. People tend to just like put up their website and say like, yeah, I already put up my website, and it become a checklist. So oftentimes they would say like, yeah, I have my business, I have all of these different things, my business running, and the website is just there. But there's such big power you can leverage from your website beyond just like adding information in there, beyond just like, populating it with as much content as you can. it needs to be very strategic, because at the end of the day, the difference is that you are being chosen over another brand or even losing the sale completely. So today we'll talk a little bit about this, and especially looking at a UX research tool called User Journey. Some of you may have already heard about this user journey, user persona. Some of these can get combined together to be a powerful tool for you to understand more about your target audience and see how you could potentially deliver the best experiences for your brand, not just online, but also beyond the web. So let's dive in. How many of you actually know what a user journey is? If you know it, please either raise your hand or give me hearts so that at least I know if you have heard about this before, or perhaps you're actually using this as part of your business. If not, a user journey is a very simple visual trip, right? It is typically seen as the visual trip to understand what is your users are doing in different solutions that you're providing or different channels where you are showing up. So more into this, as you can see in front of you, it understands what your target audience feelings, the pain point, and also moments of delights you want to deliver for them. So looking at it from the area of like, how do they find out about you? The awareness stage, right? And then from the awareness stage, how do they get interested in connecting with you? And then learning more about your brand before they ended up purchasing from you, like making that first leap in believing in your product, believing in your service, and then finally become your client. So what are these different stages going to look like? How do you make sure that you deliver very specific messages for your target audience, depending on which stage are they in when they interact with your business? Now, the step number one that I tend to guide our clients and other businesses that I mentor is to make sure that you know your target audience. Time and time again, people will tell me like, yes, Ari, I already know my target audience. But beyond the simple demographic information that you have about your audience, what else do you know about your target audience, right? These are 5 questions that I tend to ask a lot of our clients. And most of the time, out of the 5 questions, they already got 2 or 3 of the answers down to a T. Fantastic. But what about all the other questions, right? So you probably already have your answer for who your target audience in general, right? Maybe it's by age, it's by the location where they live, perhaps even the marital status, perhaps even, they have kids or do they have dogs or all those different things. But more so on the rest of the questions that you see in front of you, what's their behavior or thinking like? For example, some of your target audience may actually get influenced by reading from Reddit, right? Reading reviews or reading whatever people have to say about a specific product or specific service on Reddit. Some others, they might rely on their circle of friends or even circle of their own network to really rely on high quality referral. So there's quite different behavior and thinking from these 2 separate persona or audience. Which one is your audience? Having a full understanding of knowing which way do they typically lean towards, like getting influenced, whether it's by their circle of friends or network versus on Reddit or any other, review site, can be very beneficial for you to know in terms of like, how would you influence them and stay on top of mind when they come searching for your business, for your product or services. And then the other question that I have in front of us is, where are they in their life right now? People tend to forget that there are so many different life stages that we have as human beings, and especially as women, right? If you're targeting women in particular, when you target women who are in their 20s versus in their 30s versus in their 40s, their life looks so different. So when somebody would say to me like, yeah, I'm targeting, women who are planning their wedding and their age is typically about 25 to 45. And I would ask like, have they been married before, right? I mean, like, what does their life look like if you are targeting women who are planning their wedding in their 20s versus planning a wedding in their 40s? Those could look so different. And the messaging that you would have on your website or any other channels that you have would need to be very specific towards that particular audience. So I feel like a lot of these different questions get overlooked pretty often. And the last questions, even, right? What's their deciding factor? There are so many things that could contribute to, your target audience decision and their final say about like whether they're going to book you today or they're going to purchase your product today. Is it more about their alignment in needs, alignment in perhaps value that you bring, or is it more because it's convenience or it's the fastest solution for them? What's their deciding factor, right? So all of these questions hopefully can be a good food for thought for you to really refine your target audience, because my big tip really is for you to not create a persona for the sake of creating one, right? And this is becoming your important piece of your business, because everything will rely on your persona. When you're creating ads, you're going to create your own persona to make sure that your ads going to perform, as optimized as possible. When you're doing any type of marketing, not just for your website, everything is going to rely to your persona again. So you're going to be using this over and over in your business. So make sure that you enrich more of your persona information with the questions that I already shared earlier. All right, the next steps that I have is step number 2, aligning it with their needs. We talked a little bit about this earlier in terms of like understanding what's your target audience or customers' challenges and the offering that you may have, whether it's your product, whether it's your services, and understanding how would any of these services or products would solve your target audience need. Now, you may already have your USP, right? Your unique selling proposition, or maybe even your irresistible offer that can help address your target audience challenges and needs. The question now is, are they being communicated very, very well on your website? Is it easy to understand? Is it compelling for them? Or is it just something that you draft and, just like spit it out on your website and then hope somebody would understand it? So some of these going to be a couple of things for you to kind of take a little bit deeper look into your website and to really understand if you are your target audience coming into your website for the very first time. Is it clear how you convey your unique selling proposition or even your irresistible offer to make sure that their needs is addressed directly on your page? And then the third one, where would they go or talk to before they find your service or product? I find that this particular question can really help you brainstorm, a few different places and even thinking through your partner for different vendors, right? So think of it this way. Before they come to your business or before they purchase your product, where would they go first? So let's think about the example from the wedding planner. Before a wedding planner, get connected with the bride or even like any other things that a bride needs to do for weddings, where would they go, right? And for a wedding planner, they might even have relationship or building up their power partners with photographers in the wedding industries or bakeries, as well as like wedding venues and things like that. And they would create these really cool partnership where each of them can refer one another. So it almost feels like you would have some sort of like power partners on your own circles if one particular customers will come to you. Where do they go before they come to you? Or maybe right after they're done with you, where would they go after, they receive a service from you, or maybe after receiving product from you? So kind of having this full circle of experiences for your target audience, not only going to benefit you down the line, but also benefiting themselves, your own target audience, because it makes you feel like you're you're creating this circle of community where they can stay within your circle of community. All right, so that's step number 2. My pro tip for the step number 2 is to make sure that you revisit your persona one more time. Really look at their behavior and thinking and understanding like where do they typically spend their time, especially online, right? Are they primarily on Facebook, like on Facebook groups, or are they primarily on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, perhaps even like other website reviews, like or marketplaces like Reddit, or maybe even Yelp and all the other websites out there. Now, the main reason why I want to really take a look at your persona and really understanding where they would spend some of their time online is because you will then be able to understand where would you want to spend more of your marketing dollars as you start investing towards either marketing or even ads down the line? Okay. The last step is really designing the experience. And this is the fun part. I feel like it. You will have two types of touch points as well as like channels that you would want to understand when it comes to like designing experiences on the web. So what are channels and touch points? Channels are pretty easy actually. So channels are a way for you to understand where your customer is coming from. And touch point is a little bit more specific, and it typically is inside a channel. So an example could be, online could be a channel. Online chat could be a touch point. And then if you want to use your website as an example of a channel, your homepage or contact page then could be the touch point. There are more channels out there. It's not just your website. It's not just, online in general. You can even get a bit more specific with channels like social media. Social media can be your online channels, and all of the items inside of social media can be a touch point for you to get interaction or even connection with your target audience. Now, don't forget also search engine is its own online channels, right? So everything that you have related to your articles, your YouTube videos, any case studies, as well as like press and media mention that you have outside of your website could be yet another touch points for you to get interact with your target audience. Okay, so I have a couple of different examples here. I'm happy to share some of these later for you as well. And you can take a look at examples of different user journey. There is no right or wrong in terms of like how big or how condensed of information should you include in a user journey. A user journey can be as simple as what you see over here, or it can be as extensive as you see over here. Again, I'm happy to share all of these examples for you guys to kind of take a look and compare how would you want to create your own user journey. And I'm happy to share all of these a bit later. I also have a very simplified version of a user journey. I call it like a one-page user journey. And on this simplified user journey, you really only have to pay close attention to 3 areas. The first one is your user scenario. So understanding what is your typical user scenario look like, the goals that they have, and some of the expectation that they want out of you, especially on your website. And then the second portion is understanding their emotions, their responses to some of the experiences that you would deliver on the website. And the last part is areas of opportunities. This is where you can really address some of your target audience pain point. Let's say that they want to really complete the booking for my haircut within 5 minutes. If that is the expectation, how would you deliver that seamlessly on the web and making sure that you account for all of these different items within your website? So that's the example. And I believe I shared the link with Nicole earlier, so you can feel free to download that particular PDF. And pro tip here for putting together these 3 steps, right? The big question really is like, where can your target audience see you? Easily see you, easily, stay connected with you and always keep you on top of mind. So that is one of the other reason why I feel like have a full understanding in terms of like where your target audience would typically spend their time, especially online, is where you'll be able to influence not just, them and also their decision to move forward with you maybe at some later point, purchasing from you or booking you for the next service. Okay. So let me recap real quick before we get to a couple more examples. The recap from all the 3 steps earlier, we have the first step is understanding your target audience. So understanding like who are they, where do they live or hang out, what's their behavior or thinking like, then where are they in their life right now, as well as like what's their deciding factor. The second part is the alignment between your target audience needs and challenges, as well as like your particular service or product, and where do they meet in the middle, and how would a lot of these services that you have or product can really better their life and being communicated well on your website. And then the last part is experience design. So the PDF, I believe, is already shared in the chat with the link. And the last piece that I want to share, as we get into some of the examples from different websites that I have seen this past 13 years, I think there will be great insights for you as you start making little changes on your website, and then to start seeing some of these changes turn into better conversion for your website as well. Now, for 5 questions that users tend to ask before conversion takes place. I'm also guilty on this because I was asked a lot of these questions every single time I would go to a new website. And I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me with the number one. Every single time, right? You go to a new website, you're probably thinking, what is this website all about? It goes without thinking when you just land to a new website without understanding, okay, who is this brand? What do they do? And all that kind of stuff. You'd want to quickly understand on the very top page above the fold in the hero. So a hero essentially is the first section that you see on a page as you load it. And you would want to really quickly understand, does this particular website tell you what do they do? Who is this for? What exactly is this website going to, give you in terms of like product and services information? And then the second portion is understanding like how does it work? Yes, we know exactly how e-commerce website already work, but most of the time it's so reassuring for a lot of us to understand every single brand's way of doing things, and they are typically, different from one to the other. So having some sort of section like how does it work or like how it works, that kind of stuff, it will help a lot of your target audience feel assured that they know exactly how things are going to work from your process, or how they get rolled into this new way of perhaps your own product or services may differ from your competitors. And then the third one is, can I trust this brand? If you don't already have testimonials, or even like perhaps even some sort of like organization that you are part of that you include as the logo in your website or landing pages, or maybe even press, right? So include some of these different social proof in your website so that people can really start building the trust immediately. For a lot of the users coming to your website as the first timers, they're going to look for a lot of these different information so that they can feel confident they're on the right website that can, how do I say this? Like, it's more like they feel like the trust is already built in immediately. So they're not the only one who's looking at the website. So making sure that they know previous, testimonials or reviews, or even like any recognition that you may have garnered in the past. Now, number 4, if you already have number 1, number 2, and number 3 checked off, you pretty much already got your user hooked. So the next thing that they would do is that they will look for a clear call to action. How would they buy, or how would they sign up for your product or services? So making sure that your call to action button are going to be very visible, very easy to understand, it's direct, and guiding them to the next step. And speaking of next step, the number 5 is like, what's next? User interaction when they click your call to action does not end by just simply clicking submit or clicking buy now, right? There's always going to be the next steps for them. So making sure that you account for what's going to happen next for your user is going to really level up your user experience that you want to deliver for them. So thinking through like after the checkout, what would happen? Will they actually get an email notification? If yes, what would that going to include? Where would you want to direct them after the purchase to make sure that they stay within your pipeline? There's a lot of different things that you could incorporate for what's next for your target audience, and that don't stop until they hit the button for your call to action. All right. OTA is the last item that I want to share when it comes to designing the user experience for your target audience, right? Making sure your website is optimized for many different screens that we are using right now is also critical. Unless you know exactly that your target audience are on the mobile or browsing through mobile all the time, the big thing about designing from mobile is not always going to be the best way. So sometimes designing for, desktop first versus designing mobile first can be a little bit of a debate depending on like who your target audience and where do they spend their time the most, or how do they typically browse your information online the most. And the testing portion, if you haven't already done this month, December, right before we get into January and 2025, have your website being tested, have it audited so that you can at least understand what's currently not working. Maybe there are some disconnected user experience, broken links, any of those that you could potentially fix up so that you have these more improved, in the next year and have your site perform much better. And then the last part is always to analyze your website regularly, making sure that you get all of your customer feedback and identifying any areas of improvement so that you can continuously working on updating your website, throughout the year. Think that's pretty much it for OTA. Now, I do have a couple of examples to kind of show you what are some of different examples on bad UX versus good UX. So we can kind of go over these quickly. After this part, we can go into a Q&A. So if you want to kind of get your questions ready, feel free to do that and we can start getting into your questions right after this. Now, for bad UX example, the one that I have in front of you is an example from KindBuddy. And this one is actually a very beautiful website. So the main reason why I include this one as a bad UX example is simply because they are using way too many content sliders or carousel in one page. So why is it a bad thing? You might ask that. Well, it's not that using sliders or content carousel is a bad thing. It is the amount of the sliders in a one single page that's kind of causing this bad UX, performance, right? In terms of like having all of your content into sliders, it's great to use content sliders when you have, specific content that you want user to interact with. However, if you want to do that, only use one content sliders throughout your page, not three. This particular website uses three of them throughout the website. And the downside is that you're going to create so much work for your target audience to keep clicking through every single time they want to understand specific information. So it's great to have some interactivity for your user to do on a homepage or any other pages on your site, but don't make them work too much because at the end of the day, they want to make sure they understand your information quickly and they don't really want to spend that much time working and clicking through every single pieces that you have on the site. Okay. Next item, I have another bad UX example. You can probably already tell how those moving text is not only moving super fast, but it's stacking from one to the other. So if you are going to do any sort of like animation or any moving elements on your website, make sure that they are actually designed in a more subtle way and not overwhelming your user. A good example would be the one from Her's website, where you can kind of see that the moving text is very simple. It's like maybe a lot more embedded into the design. It works more seamlessly. It's so much easier to follow and just give the user a feeling that they're not feeling bombarded because it just become part of the design rather than like yet another content that being bombarded to them. Okay. Another better UX example for you to take a look in here is how often I see a lot of businesses would put a lot of their social proof near the end of the website. Don't do that. You want to build up the trust with your target audience immediately. So a good example would be the one from Dame website, where they actually highlight their social proof, their reviews, and all the other great things about their brand above the fold. So this could be a really good tip for you if you actually have all of your social proof below the page, sorry, below the fold, right? Make sure you can lift them up and make it part of your hero. Actually, that would be even better. Okay, I think that's pretty much all I have for example, you guys. So the last part I have over here is my book. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at my book or even read this book will come in handy if you are in the middle of like planning your website or even want to redesign your website and figuring out what kind of strategy you want to really utilize for the next year. And, it includes all the tips and tricks in terms of like helping you transform your website and generating more conversion from it. And before we get to questions, if you do want to kind of get a little bit more, I guess, like engagement together, I have an exclusive offers for only D&D members. So we can talk more about it later. You can chat with me after this as well. But really what we wanted to bring in for this particular offer is getting the proactive website care plan that's currently only $315 a month. And that's typically $575 per month with us. So you get a saving over $3,000 throughout the year. So happy to chat on that one with you guys later. I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I have lots of different resources there and we can stay connected after this in LinkedIn as well. Back to you, Nicole.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And I was just actually going on to make sure that I grabbed your LinkedIn link and then dropped it into the chat so that everybody can connect with you that way. So I'll do that right now. And then we can open this up for Q&A. So we can do, I know Willow dropped a question into the chat. And then anybody else who also, while we're going through Willow's question, wants to chime in the chat, or we can do unmute. But Willow asked, she said, I often get stuck with wireframes and trying to figure out which comes first, the copy or the design. Do you always wireframe first? Do you ever skip straight to design? It's hard to picture a wireframe. Would love to just understand what you think is best in the process.
Yeah, I love that question. Oh, goodness. In the past, I love just like get straight to design. That's where all the fun begins, right? But really, don't go to design yet, because when you start leading with the design, you often overlook all the different strategies that you could implement into the website design, right? So I always recommend getting through the wireframe first. The tools that I'm using is called FlowMap, so FlowMapp. FlowMap really helps me just understand, like starting with the base from sitemap. So understanding like how many pages are we going to build for this website? Just to understand like how big will this website be? Is it going to be like only 5 pages website, or is it going to be like a 70 pages website? So there's going to be like a big difference in terms of like how would you design and structure content for a 5-page website versus a 70 pages website, right? So starting with the UX pieces and the strategy pieces first with that sitemap, and then also into your user flow and then wireframe, and then you go to design. The beautiful things when you start with all these UX pieces from the sitemap, user flow, and wireframe, it really help you thinking through like how do we connect one page to the other? What is the correlation between one page and the other? And you can figure out like different sections that will support both pages as you see fit, essentially. So when you do work on a wireframe, right, my big thing before we translate wireframe into design is to also understand what would the overall look and feel going to look like once you flush in all the design. I typically use my approach using Stylescape. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Willow. So using Stylescape helped me to just understand what would the hero going to look like, what would be some of the banner style going to look like. And then once you have your wireframe nailed down, you can just easily translate all of those design pieces into your hi-fi design.
That's so helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I find that this question of yeah, of like actually understanding, but wait, what is it? How does this work? Or what is it going to look like always comes up in the wireframing stage. So that's really helpful.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, as my last question, with copy, I find that design always wants copy first and copy always wants design first. What do you recommend?
There's always going to be a battle on that. Here's the thing. The point of having a wireframe is just to understand how much content will we need, right? So I would start at least like having a sense of like what would be all of these pages content need going to look like. So let's say that you have 5 pages that you need to work on. So that would be what? Homepage, about us. Let's say you have a shop page, and then maybe even like portfolio page, whatever it might be, right? So typical 5 pages. You would have an overview for the content that this page is gonna house X, Y, and Z content. It doesn't have to be super detailed content just yet. It just needs to be like, give me the outline of the content. That's it. So design then will build on wireframe for those outline content. And then they will work with copy again. Here's the outline, here's the wireframe. We need to populate now with actual content. So it almost like content and design team has to work like hand to hand rather than just like, hey, I'm done with content, now go do the design, or like, hey,
Got
I'm
it.
finished with the wireframe, go back to content. It actually both ways.
I love it. Okay. That's super helpful. And then do you guys ever work with partners to do portions of a site?
The fine portion of the site.
Like a part of the process versus the whole process?
Yes and no. I would need to know like the details on that. So
The
happy to
details.
chat with
Okay.
you after this, what that might look like.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
That was super helpful.
anytime.
And if we have any other questions, we can feel free to drop them in the chat. We can also unmute and ask them live that way. So we'll leave a little time for any other questions that might be coming through. Okay, I'm gonna drop a little note into the chat here as we're wrapping up. But Ari, thank you so much for this. This was so jam-packed with amazing, actionable, really helpful and thorough information. So just thank you for your time and for your insights and for offering to connect with members after the fact. We dropped your LinkedIn into the chat. So for anybody who would like to connect with you, they can do it that way. But thank you for your time, and thank you to you all for showing up. It was wonderful to see all of you. And I'm wishing you all a wonderful rest of your week and see you all very soon.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again,
much,
Ari.
Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.